addressing the conflict of infertility. The scenery is a little different for me because I am in bed. I had to take my own advice today and go to the hospital, even though I didn't want to, but I thank God I did because I had a very serious diagnosis that if I had waited and ignored the symptoms I was experiencing because, the fear of corona, it could have been way worse picking it up later. So I'm in my bed right now where I'm going to be for the next couple of weeks, but the show must go on. So we're going to continue the live. Just the scenery is different. And I mean, I'm not my usual dress up because I literally just came back from the hospital and just had time to take a shower and get dressed. So anyway, today we are discussing and addressing the conflict of infertility. And today I have with me Ayana Miguel. She is a professional conflict and performance coach, as well as a certified mediator. And we're going to delve right into that as soon as she comes on. So I hope everybody's having a good Monday. My Monday is a bit shaky, but it will be better for sure. And I'm just going to wait till Instagram let you all know that I'm here. So thank you for joining. Hi, Megan. Hi, Rigo04. Hi, Candice. I just hope I get Ayana on soon. She hasn't joined us as yet. So I'll just wait for her to come on. Hi, thank you, everyone, for joining us. How's your Monday so far, everyone? Let me know. I pronounced it correctly. Good. Wonderful. Okay.
Hi.
Hi, how are you, Ayana?
I'm fine, thanks. And you?
I'm gonna be fine. Yeah, I got some major news today, but I decided that the show will go on, and I will deal with my situation afterwards. Okay, so I did do my initial introduction that you're a professional conflict and performance coach as well as a certified mediator, but I want you to tell us a little bit more of yourself and what that exactly means.
Okay, so as you said, I am a professional conflict coach and mediator. I was a mediator first, a certified mediator with the Trinidad and Tobago Mediation Board in 2012, so several years now. And recently, a few years ago, I started studying in regards to coaching, and I decided to link what I learned in mediation, alternative dispute resolution, and combine it with the coaching aspect. And in addition to the training and development I've done over the years, as well as lecturing, because I really want to facilitate an area of learning as regards to resolving, managing, and honing that conflict, understanding different conflicts, personal, between persons, couples, and so forth.
Okay. So that's what's encompassed in conflict coaching.
Yeah, basically, it's an individual process. Unlike mediation, where you have more than one person, conflict coaching is an individual process that focuses on the here and now. Yes, we may take into consideration some historical aspects, but we really focuses on what is going on in this point. And it's not only about resolving the conflict, it's also about managing the conflict, understanding the conflict, also learning to communicate in difficult situations, having difficult conversations, avoiding escalating a conflict into, an issue that it would totally out of hand. So right. It's a different, it encompasses a few things well.
So how in your decision, in your opinion, how exactly does a conflict arise? What causes conflict?
Wow. Conflict is inevitable and it's pervasive. We know that. Right. Simply picking out this dress today was a conflict. Do I go with a pink stress? Do I go with this stress? Do I go with these classes? It can be in anything, and it really is about scarcity of resources. It's where you have a pull and tug of power, right? Of actually laying claim to what is mine, what is yours, how do I feel, how do you feel, right? Conflict arises too by a miscommunication, right? A simple thing as that. So it's when you have incompatibility of values, when you have incompatibility of how power is distributed, right? Therefore, you will have conflict arising.
Right. So we're going to delve specifically in dealing with conflict when it comes to infertility. So I'm just going to give the definition of infertility for everyone who's out there. Infertility is basically defined as the inability to conceive or be pregnant after 1 year of unprotected sexual activity. The sexual activity have to be frequent, at least 3 to 4 times a week. And that time frame, we kind of shorten depending on age. So 35 and less, we would say, okay, you could wait a year before seeking any sort of medical treatment. If you are 35 to 40, we say wait 6 months, but over 40, you don't even really have to try to see if you get pregnant. If you think you want to get pregnant, you can come in and get assistance right away because, you know, as a woman, our fertility declines as we age. So that's the definition of infertility. And now you're going to tell us, when we say conflict of infertility, what exactly do we mean?
When we say conflict of infertility, and let's take what you said just now. As a woman, our fertility declines as we age. That in itself is a conflict. As soon as we hit 35, that is where the stress comes in, and we don't have any kids. We need to have children. We need to have children before we turn 30. Why are we not having kids? You get married at 28, by 28 and a half, where's the children? Give the man a child. That is a conflict, right? We're talking about the stresses that comes hand in hand with infertility. Infertility in itself, just hearing the word, eludes stress. It makes you think of a stressful situation, right? And persons going through it will have that dealing with that stress is a conflict. Couples will have that conflict in maneuvering infertility. And even our family members, and I say our because this is something dear to my heart. It's something that I have to endure personally. So I understand it, and I can speak from that experience. Even our family members, and I could just say my parents, they had conflicts as well. How do I support my child? How do I help her feel better about what she's going through? Even when I did not go to them to ask them, their conflict was, do I lend support even though she's not out? Even though she's not saying, Mommy, I need your help, or Daddy, please, you know, what do I do? Because as a personal person, I dealt with it on my own, right? But then it was conflict with them as parents to know, how do I help you? And then for me, why do I put this on others? Why do I bring my conflict to them, my stress to them? Why do I add stress to them? And I could just deal with this on my own. Right. So when you look at the conflict, infertility, it's quite pervasive. Infertility in itself is a conflict. Why can't I do what is expected of me from society? My role, achieve my role as a mother or a father. Why is it so hard for me to do this? And you know, that stress, those arguments that will come on hand, those situations that you just wonder why, you know? So when we talk about the conflict and addressing the conflict with infertility or fertility, it's things like that we're looking at.
Right. And coming from the Caribbean, as well as, you know, the community that we come from, it's thought to be taboo discussing these things when it comes in relation to having children or difficulties having children. Yes. No one really wants to discuss any difficulties they have, especially you don't want to discuss any treatment that you're going to undergo to try and have a child, because especially to our elders, it's very taboo. They thought in themselves, I got pregnant easily. Why are you having this problem? All you have to do is A, B, C, D. And they will recite all you have to do, not really fully understanding that it's not as simple as we think. Fertility is a wonderful thing. And for those who do it effortlessly, praise God. But not for everyone does it come that simply. And it's a very difficult concept that many people don't get. So it's very difficult for individuals experiencing infertility to reach out to family members or loved one or friends, because they get all of this advice that really is not helpful except to make you feel less. And it's well-intentioned, but it doesn't help. And, you know, a lot of Caribbean people, I can say especially, probably happens with other communities, but I can speak personally from Caribbean background, is that we think that seeking any help, especially when it comes to fertility, is, you know, it shouldn't be done. This is a private matter between you and your husband, and you guys should figure it out. Even if there's something that could help you, the elders would be like, nope, don't do it. Don't do it at all.
Exactly. And that is attributed to the shame that goes hand in hand with infertility in the Caribbean. Right? I'm seeing someone here is actually commenting sensitivity. Some of us don't know how to be sensitive in dealing with this. And as soon as you get married, get a man a child, you're not going to make a child, what are you doing? Why are you taking so long? Your eggs will dry up. And these are the things we have to deal with.
Yes.
Right? Man, what's going on with you, boy? Why are we not working or whatever? These kind of insensitive comments are being made. And to the general masses, it may be funny. But to us persons who are going through it, no, it is not that funny. It's a hard pill to swallow, because you are battling with this thing behind closed doors with your better half, your other half. You are battling with this. So when you go out and have the public actually putting in their 2 cents, it makes it even difficult. And that in itself is a conflict. Right. Because it goes to where the blame lies.
Right. So now it's me or you.
Who do I blame?
Right. So that is like a true issue. And even for those people who try to be sensitive and think that they and themselves are being, you know, very delicate with the issue, making certain comments is still not as sensitive as you may think. So some people in their best intentions may be like, you know, maybe you should just give it a break, or maybe, you know, a child is not for you, or what about adoption? And I mean, I've had to talk to patients about adoption, but it's never really the first option you ever bring up, because it's kind of telling them, don't try, forget it, just go somewhere else. So sometimes people say to people, I've heard people say, you know, maybe you weren't meant to have a child. If God wanted you to have a child, you would be pregnant. And I was like, I really, really dislike that argument, because then it makes medicine obsolete. Because with that argument, it means that if God wanted you to have anything, if God wanted you to deliver, you just deliver on your own. You don't need an obstetrician and gynecologist. You don't need a cardiologist. If he wanted your heart to work, you wouldn't need a transplant. Yeah, I don't buy that argument, but I hear the argument a lot. And I think that we need to move away from all the unsolicited advice that we tend to give to our friends and loved ones with best intentions, because that in itself puts a further strain on the person as well as the couple who's experiencing this.
This is very true. Very true.
So from an interpersonal perspective, when dealing with yourself, how would you say that one should deal or cope with like the guilt and the feelings of inadequacies that they may have when experiencing infertility?
And again, we talk about the blame and the guilt and the shame. And my advice would be, you need to be aware of what your coping mechanism is. How do you plan to deal with it? You need to understand yourself. And again, speaking from personal experience, when I went through this, I had to take my other person's opinions out of my head. Right? And I had to say, okay, Ayana, this is something that you want. This is a journey that you have to go through. You have to, research. You have to know what it is you're getting into. It's not, you can't have a child, what do you do? No, I can't have a child. What is the reason for it? And as a researcher, my background in research as well, I got to the bottom of it. Why is this happening to me? What are the reasons for this? What are the causes for this? Right? And you have to not internalize and take that blame and put it all on yourself, because it's not going to help the situation. Blaming yourself is going to amass you with all of this guilt, all of this negative feeling, and no resolution will be found. What I personally say to is make a plan. Make your personal plan. Okay, this is what's going to happen. I think I may be infertile. What do I do? What are my options? I seek a doctor. I seek medical attention. Some persons prefer not to speak to others. That's like me. I would prefer not to delve into with third parties. My partner, I will do that, etc. And talk it out. Talk to somebody who knew it. At my time when I was going through this, my sister-in-law, who passed unfortunately, she was also going through the same thing. And we were buddies in a sense. And she allowed me to take the blame out of it and take the blame off of myself. Not to put it on my partner, but understand that, listen, it is something that you're going through. It's not your fault. You have to get to the bottom to know why. And when I got to the bottom of it, then I say, okay, what are my next options? Right? So make a plan, a short-term, flexible plan. What are my options? Am I going to adopt? Am I going to try IVF? Am I just going to give it a rest for a bit, relax myself, take the stress out of my life, and go from there? And what I can say is, when I decided to step away from it for a bit, remove the stress and just not think about it, is when I got pregnant. And I had my son, going on 10 years ago. Right? And this was after me told that I could not have children. Right. Well, right? So, yeah, so basically that's it for the personal side of it.
And for some, that may be, as soon as you start relieving yourself from the stresses, the day-to-day constant worry and the pressure of trying to have a child, it happens. And in some cases, it may not happen naturally, and you may need to seek the advice of a doctor. You may need to seek professional advice. And, this is just also to inform you that there are options. After your 1 year of trying to get pregnant, 1 year if you're 35 and less, 6 months if you're 35 to 40, over 40, you can come immediately. After you've tried and you've given it sufficient amount of time and you're like, I'm ready to seek. There are doctors who specialize specifically in fertility. In infertility. So you can start off with your OBGYN. We do basic tests, and sometimes the answer is much simpler. We can present you with the answer from routine tests. However, sometimes it needs to go more complex. We need to go to more complicated diagnoses. We need to get more specific into what's going on. And then there are reproductive endocrinologists and infertility specialists. They are OBGYNs themselves who are further specialized to deal specifically with the art of trying to help you get pregnant. And you just have to know the options, because sometimes what happens is that people don't even know who to go to, or that there's even someone to go to. So knowing your options is also a big thing. You can opt not to go to anyone. You can opt to say, well, that's it. But knowing your options definitely is important. I'm just seeing a question. Can male A negative blood type affect fertility of a woman? So your blood type doesn't affect fertility at all. The blood type plays an important role when it comes to the actual blood type of the baby, which is, it'll be too complex to explain now, but it doesn't affect your fertility having different blood types from your partner. So no, that's not a reason for infertility. One thing that I also wanted to mention is that a lot of times women take the blame for the cause of infertility, or alternatively, women are blamed. Whether they take it or not, they are blamed. And what we have to realize is that about 1/3 of cases are male issues in terms of male factor for infertility. Another 1/3 we can kind of contribute to the woman, and the remaining cases is a combination of either a combination of both of them causing the problem, or we just have no clue. They both seem completely normal. So when women are constantly blamed for the cause of infertility, it's not true. We're equally as culpable as men for the factors of infertility. And we need to get away from the blaming as opposed to what's the solution going to be. Because blaming has no real impact. And age does play a significant factor in infertility, especially in women more than men. As soon as you go over 35, you're called, I don't like this term and I've said it multiple times, advanced maternal age. So over 35, your fertility drops. But once you hit past 40, it drops way more. So yes, age plays a factor, especially in the female partner, but age plays a factor for both. But it doesn't necessarily mean because you are over 35 or over 40 that you are the reason you're having difficulty becoming pregnant. There may be several factors or nothing we may find at all, but age does play a factor in infertility. So that's just something to know going forward. So one of the things I wanted you to answer is like, when dealing with third parties, how exactly do you manage that for yourself, and then how do you manage that as a couple?
Well, okay, let's look at couple first, because I mean that is the structure that we all, you get married, you get together, you plan to have a child. As a couple, you need to decide whether or not you want to get third parties involved. Are we going to deal with this, resolve this amongst ourselves, between us alone, or are we going to go to family members? Are we going to seek advice from maybe a family friend, someone who has done it before? Because I'm sure all of us as women, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think 1 out of 4 women is diagnosed with polycystic ovaries. I don't know if the figures are still accurate, if that figure is correct, but it's a high percentage. So we most likely have a friend who actually has polycystic, who has some issue. So we turn to them and look for advice. If it is we decide as a couple not to do that, we need to understand and respect that. Right. That is how we plan to deal with it.
Let me just put one thing. I would give the statistics as opposed to as opposed to polycystic ovaries. I would say 10 to 15% of couples experience infertility, because I want to take away the woman as the cause and look as the couple as the cause. Okay. So 10 to 15% of couples experience infertility, which medically it's a very high statistic. It's saying 1 out of 8 couples. So it's still something definitely to consider, the fact that it's a high number that experience infertility, whether it's male, female combination. The point is 15% of couples are going to experience infertility at some point in time.
Right. And you see, right there, you identified a conflict. Because the research that I did years ago was 1 out of 4 women going to have polycystic ovaries, and that is going to lead to infertility, which put it solely on the woman's shoulder.
Exactly.
So dealing with it on an individual level now with third parties is that, do you talk about it? Because you have to be very sensitive and you have to be keen to know who you're going to speak about, because not everyone can understand. And like the viewer said before, sensitivity, not everyone is capable of providing that or doing that, right? We have to be careful too with getting our business out there, as we see in the Caribbean. So what I like to say is that as a couple, you need to decide how you're going to deal with it. Is it that your familial support is so strong, it's something that you can lean on in this time of need, or is it that something that you put to keep to yourself and you'll rally through until better can be done? But it's a conversation that needs to be had between the two persons. They need to communicate and they need to decide exactly how you're going to move forward. What I can say in general, for third parties, especially us in the Caribbean, we always have an opinion. Right. So what I would like to say for us is that even if someone has not told us anything, but again, from observation, we see that something is going on there, no kids or whatever. Simply put it in a Trini slam, mind your business. Unless they come to you, do not offer any advice.
Yes.
Right? It's just
no
unsolicited advice. And you just hold your corner. And that's what I said to my class. Mind your business. It's simple. Because they are dealing with that. They are going through this on their own. They're trying to maneuver this on their own. And it's difficult in itself. So your well-meaning advice may not be needed at that time.
Exactly. Don't give unsolicited advice. Really, as we grow older, we should learn that more. Please do not. I'm going to address one question that Ayan Wearables is asking. She said, besides going to a fertility clinic, concerning the issue of age, are there any activities a woman over 40 can engage in to have a successful conception, pregnancy, and delivery? So that's a really good question. Overall health is key for having a successful pregnancy at any age. If you're smoking, if you're drinking constantly, you're putting yourself at a decreased chance of having conception, despite whatever age you are. So having like a well-balanced diet, staying physically fit. If you smoke, quitting smoking. If you drink, cutting down, or quitting if you can. It depends on how much you're drinking. These things are simple things that we can do, and we can do at any point in time to help boost our fertility. Now, depending on what the cause of infertility is, which to be honest, you wouldn't necessarily know unless you are worked up, then that will also determine how the treatment will go. If it's going to be a simple treatment, like we're going to just give you a few medications and tell you when to go home and have sex, or if it's going to be a more robust treatment, for example, we're going to give you strong medications and we're going to actually do IVF, in vitro fertilization, which is extracting the eggs from the ovary of the woman, fertilizing it outside of the body, and then replacing the embryo that is formed back inside with the anticipation that you get pregnant. So where you fall on your diagnosis as a couple or individual, depending, because some people do infertility treatment alone, but where you fall on the spectrum determines how much treatment is warranted to, help you conceive. But with all that being said, basic health that works across the board for any medical condition. You have diabetes, what they tell you, diet and exercise, stop smoking, stop drinking. Hypertension, same thing. Polycystic ovaries, it doesn't matter disease, the basic fundamental basics of health is going to be important regardless. So those are things that you can start implementing now. I don't care if you're 16, I don't care if you're 40, that's going to work right across the board for everyone who's going to try to get a successful pregnancy. If you are beyond 40, then I would caution not to wait too long in your quest, because as I said, natural fertility declines and you don't want to wait too long before you seek help, because sometimes your issue might be something small that can be fixed, but you don't want to wait too long that it progresses into being this issue plus age. So those are the different things that I would say definitely consider, as well as taking folic acid, specifically folic acid and iron. Everybody who can possibly get pregnant should be on folic acid and iron. So from teenagers all the way up to your 40s, you should be on this. And this also preps the body for pregnancy. So that's just a little aside to answer the question that was asked. And I'll continue with my questions and then see if there's any more questions. So from an intrapersonal perspective, right, how do we constructively address gender issues? And we kind of spoke on this a little bit while discussing infertility. Because, we have these gender roles that we think,
Yeah. Yeah. Man versus woman, Mars and Venus, and all these different constructs, especially in the Caribbean, even more so because we are so patriarchal, right? It's all, in that case, we have to really adhere to these things. And what you find is that a critical milestone in a woman's life is to be married and to have kids. That is how we have been socialized. So when in this case you find infertility pops up, you find in that case the woman basically loses her balance, right, in the relationship, because we're blaming her. We're just saying how we look at it.
Right.
The balance is lost because you are not able to produce a child. And so what you find with this is that we need to understand, even though certain roles are expected of us, as a male, as a female, what we need to do is form our own path. How do we deal with this? This is something that we are going through. How are we going to maneuver this? Taking all the other noise, all the other voices out of your head, out of the situation, and deal with it. And most important to deal with it is to communicate, and to communicate effectively, and to understand that you and I may have a different form of communication, right? You and I may have a different form of how we internalize blame, how it is that we look at ourselves. And what we need to do as a couple, and which will actually bring couples closer, right, is manage those stressors. Because when you have miscommunication, when you have blame, when you have feelings of guilt, it's a stressor. And that's where the conflict comes in. So what you need to do is constructively address it. I am the male, I'm the female, yes. But together, we are trying to have a child. Together, we are trying to overcome this conflict. And how do we do it? We communicate. We understand that we need to collaborate with each other. Thomas Kilman speaks about 5 ways of dealing with conflict. Avoidance, which is self-explanatory. We just avoid it and move along. We accommodate it, as in okay, well, we can't have a child. Well, we'll just take it one day at a time and leave it in the higher purpose hands, and something will happen. We could compromise. Well, and it may sound asinine, but it's something that I've been said. I heard it before and through my years. Well, I can't give you a child, so maybe you can get one and we'll buy it, or some kind of exactly. We collaborate. Okay, this is what's going to happen. We don't know what the cause of the problem is at this point. Let's both seek medical attention. Not only the woman, and put all the blame on her, but the man also. And let's get to the bottom of it. Let's find out what can be done together. Right? And it's only through effective communication and really understanding each other's position in the relationship, you can actually maneuver these gender roles and resolve the issue.
Right. And jumping right from that straight into the next question I have. So how exactly do you not allow this internal conflict that you have with yourself or with your partners to stop you from living your life?
It's understanding each other, and it's using the conflict to grow closer to each other, right? And okay, again, I spoke about a plan earlier, making a short-term plan, but making a short-term flexible plan. Let's for a minute step away from the whole issue of infertility. Let's put some savings aside to maybe do a trip sometime later. Right? Let's spend some time, one-on-one time together. Let's learn to communicate with each other outside of infertility. Mm-hmm. Let's get to know one another again, each other again. Right? And again, it will stem from communicating, open communication, honest communication. It will stem from managing the stresses, managing whatever conflict that exists in a way that they can see some resolution. It's understanding, and this is where the conflict coaching will come in, is understanding how to communicate in order to avoid the conflict from blowing up in their faces, right? To understand where each other stands. What side of the coin are you on, right? And respecting that, right? Respecting the boundaries, respecting the lines that are drawn, respecting each other, right? And I don't know if I can say this, but the fact of the matter is the conflict of infertility affects your sex life. Right? Because so much stress is placed on this act in order to produce a child. Sometimes the act is just like, do I really have to do this now? Or we need to do that because we need to have an end goal. No, just do it. Let's enjoy each other. Right? And understand that. And when you move away from that, you become closer. Right. And that is how it will help you in that case.
So you talked about open and honest communication, and I want to now delve, like, how do you actually do the open and honest communication, especially for, let's just say, now we have a diagnosis and it's one partner or the other that's the cause for the infertility. So now, as we spoke about earlier, now we have the blame game. We know who it is. How do we have that open and honest communication where the one who thinks it's not me feels able to express themselves, but more importantly, the one who is, probably feeling a little guilty is able to not internalize that guilt and to be able to deal with it and move forward as a couple?
And you see, that's a difficult thing to do. I will be honest with you. It is quite difficult because maternity and paternity are social dictates, right? Okay. This is what is dictated to us. Yes. Right? And what you find, there is a significant difference in how males and females manifest their sadness, manifest their disappointment, right? So what you need to do as a couple is understand your partner's way of actually manifesting this disappointment and sadness, because there is going to be disappointment and sadness, right? And you need to work through it. Now, you said that they have been diagnosed, right? What are the options available? What can be done now? And this brings me back to a few weeks ago, I was looking at a television show, The Good Doctor. Okay. And on it, there was a situation where one of the doctors, his wife, decided that she wanted to start a family. And in her mind, she waited too long to do it, right? She built a career and whatever. And he was displeased. He basically told her it was her fault. And her response was, but you supported me during all the while I was building my career. He said, yes, I did. But at the end of the day, it's your fault. Lo and behold, when the results came back, the fault was on him. And what I found very interesting, the show did not delve any more into that. It was his fault. He could do a surgery if he chose to for them to have a child. But that was it. And I was saying to myself, if this was a female, we'd have had a whole storyline. It would have been, what can she do? IVF, how distraught she is. She's going through all the emotions and whatever. But because I love the fact that they put it on him. I mean, because the whole social dictate. But what more? It wasn't delved any more into it. And what you found that you cannot be inflexible in going through this. You cannot say this is my stance and I stick to it. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to collaborate with your partner. Right? You have to understand that my view of this can be distorted because of my role or because of where I am. And I need to be able to unravel how I view it and see it. You need to be able to pull that string from the ball of yarn and unravel it without knots. And it's simply by communicating and understanding each other. So don't blame. I mean, it's going to be hard. We are human. We deal with disappointment in all various ways, but try not to blame your partner. Try to understand your partner. And even the person who is being told that they are at fault, right? You do not take that load onto yourself. This is not of your doing. It's something that occurred. So how do I overcome this? And it's simple. And I say honestly, with infertility, we have survivors because you overcome it. Some of us do not have children at the end of it, but you overcome it. And I have known cases where clients don't have, and they still have a happy marriage. Yes. So it works. It's not the end of the world.
It's just basically riding it through despite whatever the results come. And I mean, the decision is so vast because some people always think that the decision must be to, in the end, somehow get a child one way or the other. And they may opt for fertility treatment. They may opt for IVF. They may opt to adopt embryos because, you know, you can actually adopt an embryo. You may opt to adopt a child or foster a child. But you have to also recognize that there is an adoption to just do nothing and to accept it. And it's a good option for those who decide. And the external voices need to let that option be an option that people could consider without giving the opinion of, oh, why don't you try this and that? If the couple made a decision,
that's it. Respect the decision.
It should be respected.
Yeah, so I agree.
It's a viable option, and definitely just remember that there's a whole array of options to get what you want. You just have to decide what the end goal of what you want is and what it's going to be, and accept that. All parties should accept that, and all parties, including external parties, all parties, including external parties, should definitely accept whatever the decision the couple make, and unless invited in on that decision, should not really have much contribution towards it. And the invitation must be clear. It shouldn't be I suppose you want my advice. No, it's definitely, if the couple invites you in, that's fine, but don't give unsolicited advice. You know, allow the couple to decide how they decide, and if they decide to not have children, if they decide to get a dog, if they decide to travel instead, or if they decide to adopt, it's all within their rights to decide what's most comfortable for them. And we should just be the supportive role when we're external to the couple. We should play a supportive role in their decision, regardless of what they decided.
Yeah.
So, do you think there is a positive side to conflict?
Like I said before, conflict is pervasive. It is going to happen. It's going to happen in different aspects. But it can also be a functional occurrence, especially in the case of couples dealing with infertility. And what you find is that for conflict to be constructive in such cases, they must understand that a change can occur. Something can come out of this. Something good can come out of this. and I must be open and willing to understand this change and accept this change. Right? They must learn to adjust, accommodate each other, and compromise, but not compromise where there is a win-lose. Compromise without losing, right? What an important aspect of yourself, without losing that self-worth, right? Without giving in to something just because. Right. So conflict can have a positive side in that case. The more obvious positive side will be having a child, right? But again, in cases for those who choose not to, I think they have successfully understood that, listen, it's you and I in this. You are who you are. I am who I am. And we are going to do this together. And we are going to do this together with not a lose-lose or win-lose, but a win-win at the end of it all.
That is good. So, do you have any other advice that you have for anybody watching today on how to use conflict, how to mediate conflict, address conflict with respect to infertility, or just in general? Because I'm assuming that these principles would obviously be able to be extrapolated in any aspect of conflict in your life. And if anyone has questions, you can also write them below.
Oh, sure. We welcome questions. Conflict coaching, in this sense, well, what I do specifically is I facilitate learning. So if it is you're willing to learn how to manage those conflicts that may occur, how to let's see, work along with a conflict and avoid it from getting out of hand, right? I can help with that. Also, conflict ties into performance, and that's why my title is Conflict and Performance Management, because it's really to help you be a better you. It's helping you figure out how you can be a better you. It's not me lecturing to you or telling you, hey, you need to do this X, Y, and Z. No. It's me showing you with what you have given me how you can do better. And the thing is, why it is I focus on this and I specialize in this is because, again, because of my mediation background, but also because of my business background. At 24, I started my companies, and to date, both companies are still functional. One is with immediate consulting, which I do the conflict and coaching and training and development and human relations aspect of consulting. But the other one is where I am in the service industry. And to date, I have employed more than 400 persons. So I know what I am talking about. I know when I say how to start a business. I understand failures in business. I had to stop and regroup and start over 4 different times before I got to where I am today. It's hard, but it's rewarding work. So I am speaking from a place of knowledge. I'm speaking from a place of experience. And it's something I'm very passionate about. I also focus on coaching parents as well, specifically single parents, because again, it is something that we have so much unwanted advice that we lose our voice in it. And I try to help person find their voice back, understand that, hey, I have a voice. I don't have to always abide by social dictates because it's said so. I can maneuver my way within lawful reasons, of course. Right. But know who you are, understand who you are. And that in itself is a conflict. Just trying to unravel that ball of twine and finding me. That's simply it.
Right. That is 100% true. So if a couple needed help with mediation, how do they reach out to you to get that assistance that they need?
Okay. With mediation, with conflict coaching, even group coaching or couple coaching, you can actually contact me at info@immediateconsulting.com. I don't know if I can try to type it in here.
And Jerry should be typing that.
Yeah, Jerry, you should be typing that info.
So I
will actually post it on my page as well. My pages on Instagram, immediate_consulting, as well as at immediate_consulting, or you can get me at Conflict Guru 868 as well. You can go on my website, immediateconsulting.com as well, with an E, Not IMMEDIATE, but
right.
MEDIATE. That was Jerry's doing. He came up with the word as a play on my mediation. Right. Yeah, they can also reach out to you and you can contact me. It's not a problem.
Definitely. I wonder if anybody have any more questions. So I'm going to actually just scroll on the chat because I think I answered all as we were going. There's one comment that I'm going to read from Jizzy. The comment says that a huge part of it is the need for society to stay out of people's lives, which you did mention before, more or less, mind your own business in layman's terms is what that comes down to.
And I stand by it, yes.
Yeah, don't give that advice if it wasn't warranted. And even if you gave advice, even if you were asked advice and you realize the reception is not as well received, don't pursue in making your stance very adamant, because at the end of the day, you are not the couple, you are not the individual experiencing fertility, and they would have to decide for themselves what their choices are going to be eventually. It will have to be a decision made by them. And then also, she referenced that in society, we always ask, when you're having kids? And we asked this particularly 2 times. You're married for over a year, we think we're not seeing you get pregnant, or you're a single woman, because they don't ever ask the men this for some reason. You're a single woman getting older, and it's like, when you're going to have kids, when you're going to get married, and this is like what society takes as the norm. But you have to understand that people are going to make their own decisions. Some people never want to get married. Some people don't want to have a traditional household. They would choose to, have a kid by themselves, or choose to have, to not even have a kid. So you have to just be able to accept that, options exist and choices exist, and people would choose what is best and what's comfortable for them, because at the end of the day, they have to live with a decision, not you. So allow people to grow and make their own decisions and to accept, and you have to accept as an outsider what that decision is. If you're a part of the couple with the need to make that decision, then communication is the key, because you may not necessarily always come to the same conclusion. One partner may say, let's do everything possible, and the other partner might say, I'm exhausted, I don't want to do anything else.
Yes.
Exactly. But you have to communicate. What would you actually advise in that kind of circumstance, where despite a full discussion and open communication, the end wants are different between the 2 partners?
Was that? I missed that for a minute. What did you say?
So, we're a couple, and me and my partner are discussing it at length, and we're good at communicating. But at the end of the day, we can't agree on what the solution is. My partner says, let's just travel, and I say, no, I want to do everything.
In that case, again, if it is you find that you're stuck with the communication, this is where I would advise that you seek third-party help. And it could be in the form of counseling. Right? And you need that third party to really help you figure it out. Even a mediator, as a neutral third party, can actually help you come to an agreement with this. What do we do? Right. So, do we do both? You understand? Or do we do one? It's whatever. And then we get in during those discussions with a third party, you get to the bottom of why is it that I want to choose X or I want to choose Y.
Oh, that's good.
Right?
And that's a good point you made. Sometimes the decision, like people always take linear that it's A or B. Sometimes you can do A and B, and that's a point that I didn't even consider when I asked the question. Sometimes your resolution could be, let's try A for X amount of time, and then if not, we result to B. Or sometimes A and B may be something you can do at the same time. So that is actually really good advice. And we have a question from Denicia. She says, does acceptance of the problem help with finding a solution?
Acceptance of the problem will help with finding a solution once it is you want to find a solution. You can accept a problem and walk away from it. Or you can accept a problem, in my case, and say, listen, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to find a solution. What is my situation? What is causing these things? So it depends on how you choose to accept the problem. Am I going to accept the problem and just say, fine, there is a problem? Or am I going to accept the problem and continue to find out exactly if there are solutions? And if there are not solutions, what do I do? What then do I do? Right? I resolve it. I make my peace with it. and I move on with my life. It does not end living. It doesn't end your livelihood.
Right.
You just have to maybe change path and go from there. I saw another comment from MG Dean. The common advice given is to ignore unsolicited advice and comments. So shouldn't the advice then, well, so instead of to mind your business, but we can't control others. It's true. We can't control others. And that was like a general statement I made to persons who want to help, persons who just make these comments. It's you have to learn to ignore it, but not all of us are capable of that. Sometimes someone may say something and it's well-meaning, but it can hurt so much without they realizing the pain that it is. So what you would need to do is learn to manage it. You may not be able to ignore it, but you can manage how much it affects you. Right? I hope that answers the question.
Yes. So let's just see any more questions. This was extremely informative. As I told you before when we actually talked, I didn't really know much about mediation prior to us talking. So I think it was like a very good topic because infertility does cause a lot of stress. It causes a lot of disharmony in relationship, and it does cause a high percentage of divorce or separation in relationships, the inability to conceive. So being able to know that apart from the solution of having options to try and get pregnant, there's also options that we know now to try and resolve what options we're going to do for pregnancy. So now we know that there are mediators that we can actually go to help us even figure out what path we want to take before we even reach to the part of, you know, IVF or no IVF. There are people who can help us just get our internal conversations with each other starting, you know? So that's really good to know that we have it. Jerry, I don't think has written it down for us, but I would post it afterwards. I don't see the name of your company, but we will post it afterwards for sure.
Let me see if I can post it. Right. I saw 2 more comments.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to grab those.
So does acceptance, how do you ignore negative advice from loved ones?
I just have to we sort of answered that, but again, because if she missed it, you have to manage the advice. You have to understand where it is you stand and respectfully decline the advice affecting you that it wants to be better too. Actually saying, listen, I respect what you have to say, but this is my stance. You do not need to get into a verbal war or a tug of war or anything, but you can respectfully remove yourself from the situation and manage it internally. And don't let it hamper your way of living.
Right. I actually was watching a session from a mental health coach a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, basically, it wasn't this specific scenario, of course, but she was like, when somebody, puts in that, awkward position, you can say, thank you for giving me this advice. In her case, it was thank you for inviting me, but in this case, thank you for the advice. But I think for now, I'd do better off without, any extra information at this time, and no explanation further than that, no back and forth. As Ayana said, we're not discussing this. I've just ended the conversation more or less. Thank you. You don't have to be rude about it, but they usually get the point that it's a full stop, not a comma.
Like my mother tells me, out of all of her children, she will know. My siblings may tell her, Mom, I don't want to hear whatever. I will say, Mom, noted with thanks. Even when I'm doing business, noted with thanks. Once you get a noted with thanks email, and I'm not selling myself out here. That's it for me. That is where I separate myself, and I'm going to be chugging along doing my own thing. I think there's a question for you, Janelle. Does abortion causes infertility later in life when the woman wants a child?
That's a complex question, but I'm going to give you a simple answer. But the answer I'm giving is not the full answer, not the full scope. It depends on how the abortion was done, and it depends on how far along it was, and it depends on how many times you have an abortion. So if you had an abortion several times and you use the procedure that we call a dilation and curettage, DNC is how we abbreviate it in medical term, that can lead to infertility if the process was done too numerously or too aggressively, because it can affect the uterus itself. If it's an abortion by a pill and everything was passed, you dilated, you passed all the products of conception without any complications, it's less likely to cause any further problems with fertility later on. So the physical procedure, depending on the quantity, the actual procedure, as well as how far along the pregnancy was, as well as one more factor actually. It depends on who's the medical professional who did the procedure. If they were very aggressive, then this could affect fertility later on. But I wouldn't say that if you had an abortion and you're having difficulty getting pregnant, that's the thing you're going to go to. As I said, infertility causes are multifactorial. They're male and female causes, and there's several. We're talking about from the brain straight down to chronic conditions you may have, straight down to your ovary in the woman or the testicle in the man, straight down to the eggs versus the sperm, straight down into the passageway, the combination. This is a whole topic in and itself, and I would address this at some other time, but there's so many complex layers as to what can possibly cause infertility that you can't just assume because for example, we used this example before, so I'm going to use it. I have PCOS, so I'm the reason I'm not getting pregnant. It doesn't mean that at all. There's some patients with PCOS who get pregnant without a problem. PCOS doesn't equate to infertility. So a lot of PCOS patients would have trouble with fertility, but a lot doesn't mean all. So you can't automatically believe that because you have a diagnosis, that is the reason. And this is where you have, gynecologists as well as infertility specialists playing a very pivotal role in reaching the reason as well as the solution if you decide to move forward in attempting to get pregnancy. So in a nutshell, depending on how you do the abortion, it can possibly have an effect in your fertility, but it's not to assume that that's the reason. And I hope I answered that, Alana. Okay. So we have, finally, we're going to give Jerry a clap. We have the front handles that you can reach Alana. So if you or someone a loved one is suffering from infertility and is seeking advice, remember we're not giving unsolicited advice, but someone who is necessarily seeking counsel on how to deal with themselves or how to deal with their partners in this struggle and this conflict that could arise because of infertility. If you know someone or if you yourself are experiencing and you need that extra help to guide you, to mediate the process and to coach you along, then Ayana Miguel is a great source of information. We have all her handles and I will repost it after this session. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and I really want to thank you, Ayana, today for joining us, having this session, for educating all of us, including myself. I know that today was a touch and go whether we were going to have it because, I was in the hospital up until I came on, actually. So it was a touch and go, but I'm so glad that we decided to continue with it. And I definitely think that, a lot of people, you would have a big use to a lot of people that going forward that didn't even know that your services were available. You have anything you want to end with?
First of all, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it, Janelle, and I want to thank everyone who joined us today. Thank you for the questions, for the comments. It really was appreciated. And again, if you need to reach me, info@immediateconsulting.com. Reach out. Not only fertility, I can also assist with persons who are looking to develop their business, single parents, any situation you think you need to maneuver that conflict. And conflict may sound like a strong word. Dispute may be a little calmer, a little softer.
Right.
Any issue, stresses that you may have that you want to work through, I am willing to show you how to work through it. I am willing to show you that you have the power to work through it and to get to that point. So I like to say, I want to show you to meet, beat, and eradicate your goals.
I like that. Meet, beat, and eradicate.
Your goal. Let's get it done.
Get it done. And I think that would be very useful even for me. So we'll talk after this live. I have some goals I need to click.
Definitely.
So, thank you, everyone. Once again, Instagram is counting us down. So we're going to say bye. We have the 20 seconds.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.